And it was not meant to be a tax and ended up being exactly that. A vision to solve the country's housing crisis that later became the government's dose to fixing the unemployment crisis. So which is which? Days after it was passed in Parliament, the country is still yet to fully grasp the government's affordable housing agenda. Serafin Achieng Ouma explores the metamorphosis of the Housing Fund levy as proposed in the Finance Bill 2023, the practicability of its implementation, and what it will take for the government to clear the grey areas.
A deduction of a 3% levy on employees' gross salary and a matching contribution from their employers is the strategy that was initially proposed in the Finance Bill 2023 to create a pool of funds to support government's affordable housing plan. President William Ruto was categorical that this was not a tax, describing it as some form of patriotic contribution towards addressing the country's housing crisis.
It is not a tax.
What is it?
It is a contribution you are making, because if it was a tax, tax, it goes one way. You never get it. This is not a tax.
Okay, why
it is your money.
The National Assembly Finance and Planning Committee would later recommend amending the Finance Bill 2023 to reduce the proposed housing fund deduction from 3% to 1.5%, a relief that, however, came with new conditions, key among them dropping the option for contributors to redeem their money after 7 years, as had been initially proposed, raising questions over whether the fund had suddenly morphed into a tax.
Who qualifies?
Anybody who has contributed towards it.
So there's no longer the offer that you will receive back your money after 7 years or at retirement or whatever?
Again, Sam, when we listened to the public, they were saying they don't want that.
So you give it and it's gone. In short, what you're telling me, Honorable Kimani Kwere, is that the housing levy is no longer a levy, it's a tax, housing tax.
Yes, that's what Kenya
That's the thing.
Also unclear was the controversial issue of the administration of the funds.
It's going to a special fund that is created under the Housing Act, and it is going to be administered as per the regulations which are going to be published immediately after this statute is formed.
Yes, as it is now, it is a tax. It is going to the consolidated fund. But the plan that we have is that we are going to isolate, insulate this money, ring-fence this money, so that it purely goes to the intention of a housing program, not purely for people to own houses alone, but because we also want to harness the backward integration that is involved in the housing program.
International Budget Partnership Country Director Abraham Rugo explains the complexities of domiciling the housing levy into the consolidated fund.
So in this case, this money is basically a budgetary support. It's a budgetary contribution. Once it's in there, government can spend it for whatever purpose. Therefore, my concern is that it will be difficult, especially seeing the way government is currently pressed financially, to isolate it.
What the government needed to have done is to have the actual procedure for doing this kind of thing. You do policy first, you do legislation, then you come to execution of the fund. That is the procedure. What I see is putting the horse, the cart before the horse.
Another tricky balancing act for the government is the need to provide jobs for the youth and addressing the country's housing deficit, which currently stands at 200,000 units annually.
Agenda ya kwanza ni ajira. Kupitia hii manyumba 200,000 kila mwaka, mimi natarajia kutengeneza kazi 1,000,000 Kenya. Hawa vijana wanaishi hapa. Kakamega, we want to build 10,000 houses as phase 1. Katika hiyo 10,000 houses, nahitaji vijana kati ya 40,000 na vijana 50,000.
Once you build, what happens? What happens to, first of all, the jobs that were tied to that construction? I mean, you see, these are not jobs that are continuous. It's not like the people who do the construction will be absorbed as caretakers and watchmen and whatever other role in the houses. These are houses for private ownership, if you think about it. So how do you sustain those kind of jobs?
amidst this lack of communication on the clear guidelines and workings of the Housing Fund. Question is it a done deal?
First of all, it's important that to note that the president is yet to assent to the finance bill. And one would argue, okay, fine, perhaps there is still a window there. But as far as parliament is concerned, this is a done deal. This is the direction it is going. But there are also petition mechanisms that exist, such as, citizens individually in their different formations can go to court and petition that decision.
Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV.